Buenas tardes. ¿Están animadas? Sí. Tienen que levantar. Así. Yo no voy a hablar en español porque yo no hablo español, yo hablo portañol, inglés, blah, 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 blah. So every once in a while, I'll switch. But I have some friends in the audience who said, if you start speaking too fast, cálmate. Give me the sign. Just give me a little sign, yeah. Okay? Okay. Okay, so put your hands up. Ha, 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 ha. Chicka, 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 chicka. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Bueno, okay. So in the afternoon, our bodies sometimes give us a different signal that says, workshop in a dark room? No. But we have a magic resource right next to each other. That's the other human beings in this room. And this workshop is really about the power we have with each other. I think I might need to adjust that. There we go. And, well, the title is Why Are Communities of Practice Useful in Teaching and Learning? I really was thinking about this idea of this transboundary learning, that you guys have to teach and prepare students for a world that is, I don't know about you, but it's kind of scary. And it's certainly rapidly changing. But still, you have to represent your discipline. You have to validate and critically think about your expertise. So we're left with a wicked question. So this is the question that's informing our 90 minutes or 75 minutes together, which is, how is it that we are autonomously developing advances in our own disciplines, even as we're expanding the adjacent possibilities by integrating across scholarly boundaries, and I'd say not just scholarly boundaries, but community boundaries, national boundaries, international boundaries, heaven, maybe going to Mars. So we're really always working both at the intersections and the edges. So we can't solely focus on our discipline, or we'll probably be lost. This question that Carlos was talking about is, who does the university serve? Does it serve society or business? I actually think it's a little bit more complex than that. Does it serve the planet? Does it serve the student? Does it serve their local community? These things require us to work across boundaries. So what I'm going to share with you today are some ideas that come from a practitioner perspective. Okay, where do I need to aim this? There. That look to each other as the solutions for our challenges. Because I couldn't have gotten this far in my career today without other people. And the only thing that I have seen that makes the difference in pairing with the intellectual advantage you bring as academics is that circle of people who can do things with us. That's the life, the circle is the life raft. You throw it out. And so we're going to look today at some of the forms. Communities of practice is just one, okay? And I don't think communities of practice are the solution to everything. But we're also going to look at some of the practices, because I think it's important to think about this practically. And tomorrow afternoon in the workshops, it's about practice. So I want to tap your expertise first. So I got to warn you, I'm going to make you work. Is that okay? Yeah. I like people who say, yeah. Also, you remind me, interrupt me. Stand up. We'll get a microphone to you. I'm going to make the microphone people tired. Just warning you. You're going to run a lot today. Interrupt me. Challenge me. This isn't about me. It's about us. Okay? So I want you to turn to someone. And if you're sitting between two people that you know really well, then turn around and talk to somebody different. If you need to, stand up and go someplace else in the room. I'm not used to that, sitting on my chin. It's kind of fun. I feel like Madonna. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to think for a moment about a challenge that you have in teaching transversally, outside in the corners and the connections with other topics. So take a moment. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Think about your challenge, and then find another person and share it with them. And then after you've shared it, I'm going to ask you to go find another person and share it. And your job is to talk to 3 people and look, see how their challenges are similar, how they're different than yours, to teach transversally. Okay? ¿Entiendes? ¿Listos? Vámonos. Levanten. Es muy bueno levantar y cambiar. There's somebody behind. Over there. You might move on to segunda persona. Cambiar. I see people by themselves. Go find them. Se não cambiar, ainda devem cambiar a segunda persona. A segunda persona. Ok, trocar, cambiar para tercera persona. Terza persona. Cambiarse. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. One more person, más una persona. Aquí. Qué bueno, así. ¿Ahí? ¿No? Okay. Un momentito, sí. En un momentito para de discutir. Alta. Para. Alta. Para. Stop.
Cállense.
Apagan. Están listos. Completa. Atención, per favore. Italiano, ¿eh?
Ya están listos para iniciar.
Están listos para iniciar, ¿sí? Okay, let's go. You can put your ears back in. Pronto. Listos. Okay. Shh. So go ahead, sit down. Put your ears back in. Magic ears. Thank you, interpreters. I forgot to thank Sandra and her team, too. Everybody was so good about thanking you. But I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to thank you. Okay. So, did you hear anything that surprised you? And we've got a microphone and we'll run to you. Did you hear any challenge that surprised you from your colleague? No surprise? You got a surprise over here. Okay.
Thank you. Bueno, aquí en ese caso con la compañera, resulta que lo que da la sorpresa las que da la vida. Ella en este caso estaba trabajando en que es la primera secundaria, me dice, incluyente de tiempo completo, para ayudar, y en este caso, ayudar a niños con discapacidad visual e inclusive auditiva, ¿verdad? Entonces el reto para ellos es aprender el lenguaje braille. Y da la casualidad que yo con mis alumnos en bachillerato, ellos me han ayudado muchísimo. Los he contactado con personas que trabajan y que tienen en el sistema DIF, lo que es imprenta braille, y yo les he facilitado artículos para realizar desde audiolibros hasta que lleven ese material para que se lo traduzcan en braille. O sea, se me hizo algo, como dicen, como que el destino nos puso aquí enfrente, y creo que guste, maestra, pues aquí le estaba yo hasta facilitando el teléfono para contactar a la persona, porque es muy bonito a las personas que tienen esas discapacidades, hacerlas sentir que también valen mucho.
So you've got the first principle right there. Only connect. If you don't connect, the value of that knowledge cannot be available, and none of us can be smart enough. Well, I can't be smart enough to know it all. Maybe you can, but I can't. Okay, so you just in that random connection. Okay. Let me hear what you learned.
A mí me sorprendió de mi compañero de aquí atrás que enseña educación física y pudiera parecer que es todo práctico, pero sus materias se van centrando en lo teórico. Y lo que me sorprende es que haya encontrado un mecanismo para tratar de reconocer su participación en los estudiantes. Y entonces los tiene conectados en Facebook y de esa manera se da cuenta si sus alumnos, a pesar de que en el momento en el que cursaron la materia con él no hayan tenido esa participación, después en un momento logra evidenciar la participación. Entonces creo que eso sí es genial, ¿no? Tener la posibilidad de descubrir hasta dónde podemos llegar.
Ulises, gracias. You brought up another critical theoretical point about communities of practice, which is we learn when we alternate between doing and reflecting, or reifying is the fancy pants word. They have an expression, fancy pants words? Woo, woo, woo. And Etienne Wenger said, it's like trying to walk by just hopping on one foot. I'll lose all my electronics if I hop on one foot, but I can't go very far if I'm hopping on one foot. If I'm just participating, that learning will not get concretized in my brain. But if I'm alternating on both feet, I can move fast. I can move far. And that reification, who was the gym teacher? Okay, so putting what they did into the online space made their learning concrete, and it made their presence, their identity in that learning concrete. And so the learning has a better chance of seeping in. I don't know, I'm sure there's a formal word for seeping in. I'm not a theorist, I'm a practitioner. But by using social media, we're actually making participation and reification come closer, because we can do it very rapidly, instead of writing a paper, turning it in, getting it graded, getting it back. This way, that cycle of participation and reification is very quick. Muy bueno. Muy bueno, rápido. I love hearing this thing in my ear. Okay. When you one of you who, when you talk to your colleague and you felt like, oh my goodness, you feel exactly the same way. Did you find that kind of, holy macaroni, you have the same challenge? Raise your hand if you found the same challenges. Okay. So if you all have the same challenges, doesn't it make sense you'd be working together on those challenges? Not everybody, but the resources are probably in this room to solve half, 3/4 of your challenges probably today. And then you don't have to waste much time. So it's effective. It's practical. Okay. So now you've gotten to know each other. And I'm going to set this down. See, too much technology, you'll see it takes a village to raise the presenter. So all of you will help me, right? You'll make it work. Okay. So I guess I'll go back here. We talked about what you discovered. So I'm going to have you do this one slightly differently. Okay. So think of a time when you did something in your classroom and everybody understood. They could apply what you're saying into their real world. They could see how it mattered outside the doors and windows of your classroom. What happened? What happened? So this time, just to save a little time, I'm going to have you think, and then I'd like to see if anybody wants to volunteer to tell us a short story of what made that magic happen. Take a breath and think about the story. And I might have to get a tissue because my nose is running. So you think, and I'll get a tissue, and I'll have you mute me while I use my tissue. It's embarrassing. Yeah. Okay. But I'm human too, right? Have you thought of your story yet? See? See. Who wants to share their story? We'll get the mic out again. Okay. What's your name? Cara? Cara's going to help us. Okay, who's got a story? Over here. And then we'll go to the back. The one in the front, one in the back.
Mi historia fue un día en clase, yo me sentía muy mal, andaba físicamente con problemas, llegué y les expliqué el punto de equilibrio, como Dios me dio a entender. Y los alumnos, todos entendieron el punto de equilibrio y me hicieron la tarea. Pero yo no sé cómo me entendieron si yo traía mi migraña.
And why do you think, do you have any idea? What did you do differently?
No, nada.
Nothing. So sometimes magic really happens. Actually, for me, there's something very resonant there. Because sometimes we have to let go and just go with the flow. And sometimes when we don't feel well, we can let go and do something we never did before. So you may have said something very different. It's very interesting. Ooh. Okay, let's hear one back here. Okay, I'm ready.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Bueno, una posibilidad que yo encontré para potencializar la forma en la que los estudiantes plasmen su aprendizaje fue cuando decidí que nos saliéramos del espacio del aula para que ellos pudieran exponer los resultados de un proyecto de investigación. Y conseguimos con dificultad el espacio de la Rambla de Cataluña, que lo debemos conocer todos los universitarios. Ojalá y lo conozca a un lado del MUSA, del Museo de las Artes de la Universidad de Guadalajara. Y ahí entonces busco dos digamos, fechas representativas. El Festival de la Tierra, que es el Día Internacional de la Tierra en abril, para el calendario A, el Día de Muertos, que es una fecha muy conmemorativa de aquí de México, y entonces buscar que en toxicología ambiental, que es la materia que doy, ellos pudieran plasmar los aprendizajes relacionados con la materia en una representación artística, pero que pudieran identificar algunos problemas ambientales o de salud a través de una representación artística, pero utilizando también materiales de reuso. Y de esa forma no es el clásico trabajo en el que ellos elaboran su informe, lo entregan al profesor y no pasa más que de la computadora o del escritorio del alumno al profesor y hasta ahí. Entonces, trasladarnos a un espacio público en donde la comunidad llega, se acerca, convive, aprende y aparte replica conocimientos en la comunidad. La comunidad se acerca con interés, permanece escuchando a los estudiantes sus representaciones creativas y de esa forma se apropian del conocimiento y no nos quedamos ahí quietos, estáticos, esperando que el conocimiento nos salga de nuestro propio espacio.
This is perfect. And if you think about all of our presentations this morning, when you think about the Agora presentation, this idea about open and learner agency in creating meaning. Again, that's that participation and reification coming together. Instead of being a container for knowledge, they are an agent for making sense of that knowledge. We'll come over here. Okay, we'll do two quick ones here. But there's a second thing before you give them. The second thing was Mary talked about power and agency and art. There's a lot of resonance to Mary's talk. And then going on to Carlos's, this idea of space. And, you know, the adjacency of universities to their communities give us access to a much broader concept of what classroom is. It is the world. It might be across the street. It might be via technology literally across the globe. Okay, who's got the mic? Okay, you're next. Go.
Hola, buenas tardes. Bueno, a mí me tocó una experiencia muy interesante en curso de verano, en este periodo, trabajar en enfermería con adultos mayores, que es una población vulnerable y que poco se trabaja. Entonces, el proyecto es aprendizaje basado en proyecto. Tienen que elaborar un portafolio digital donde tenemos una página Wix. Logramos incluir fotografías para tener un banco digital de fotografías de adultos mayores, porque siempre descargamos adultos mayores de Estados Unidos, de Europa, que son felices. Aquí en México la economía es diferente y obviamente no hay congruencia con lo que se plantea. Hablamos de jubilación. En Estados Unidos la jubilación es adecuada para ellos, aquí no es tan gratificante. Entonces establecimos esto y finalmente logramos obtener los productos, tener ahí la página Wix donde podemos consultar y pudimos publicar un artículo que construimos entre todos y para los alumnos fue gratificante.
Are you noticing a pattern here? We'll come back after Carla and see what the pattern is. Oh, okay, these are such great stories. Well, okay, Carla, and then you, and then we'll.
Tenemos una materia, Educación y Comunicación Social. Celebraron el Día del Niño y los derechos del niño. Entonces, hicimos un cuento interactivo de un árbol mágico que volaba una princesita y se caía en un lugar en los altos, y entonces el árbol mágico tenía un color cada flor y cada color significaba un derecho para los niños. Lo bonito fue que invitaron de los kinders de la región y fueron con nosotros, jugamos con el cuento y nos pusimos a bailar. Adivinen qué canción nos pidieron bailar, Despacito, ¿verdad? Entonces, bailamos Despacito con los chicos, jugamos, salió la princesa, les dieron un dulcecito de la misma región, mandaron unos dulces para los niños. Estuvimos yo creo que como 5 horas jugando con los niños, cuando era una clase de 2. Nadie se quería ir porque estaban felices. Uno se disfrazó de Superman, bueno, era un cotorreo. Lo más chistoso es que en el cuento decía que se perdía la niña porque iba en el celular y la mamá le quiso mandar un WhatsApp y pues no había red. Y resulta que ese día fue cuando se cayó la red del WhatsApp, coincidió con lo del cuento. Fue muy divertido. Entonces, también jugamos con ese grupo blogs porque a veces vas a dar pláticas y están 10 personas cuando esperas 50. ¿Y qué están haciendo las 10 personas esperando que lleguen los que llegan tarde? Jugando con el celular. Entonces, en lugar de pedir tantos permisos para sacarlos de la institución, hicimos blogs y un blog que tuvo hasta 7,000 visitas, entre todos juntaron hasta 30,000 visitas. Entonces, es más fácil que la gente nos regale un
Wow.
clic que ir a buscar las 10 personas que te quieran escuchar y que te traigan los kinders. Bueno, estuvo genial.
Fantastic. I'm going to take one more over here, and then we have to move along, but maybe we'll just stop later on and tell more stories. Okay. Again, very interesting pattern here about multimodality. You are using all the senses, and you also had, oh, you've got one there. You also use the word fun. Please bookmark that word. That is not a bad word in a serious academic environment. Okay. Last one, and then we'll move forward.
Bueno, en mi experiencia, lo que yo hice fue que relacioné, bueno, como proyecto final, les propuse a mis alumnos hacer una obra de teatro, ¿no? En el cual era un proyecto transversal y todas las materias nos incluimos en él. Decidimos hacer Alicia en el País de las Maravillas. Lo que yo no me esperaba es que el personaje de Alicia lo quería hacer un chico. Y lo dejé ser. Hicimos la versión cabaret de Alicia, en el cual incluimos, bueno, todas las materias, hicimos la obra, e incluso, y el chico estuvo muy contento de representarla, se metió en el papel, se comprometió con él, y todos sus compañeros lo aceptaron, ¿no? Entonces eso fue muy interesante. E incluso, bueno, hicimos una presentación en la institución y otra presentación la hicimos en un instituto, ¿no? Para niños con síndrome de Down. Yo pensé que no nos iban a aceptar, sin embargo lo hicieron y fue un gran aprendizaje tanto para los chicos como para mí. Y yo creo que el tip fue dejarlo ser, simplemente.
So that idea of openness is super, super important. And you also bring up the role of identity. And in a moment, we'll talk a little bit more about identity. So I'm going to move forward a little bit more, and then we'll come back for more. Oh, you got one? Can you tell it muy, muy rápido? Okay.
Bien, yo soy Rosalinda Salazar, vengo de Cutonalá, y dos proyectos que hice en relación a la materia de mercadotecnia fue que hablé con mis alumnos para que se vistieran de pijama, anduvieran en pijama, y otra actividad que estuvieran para la protección de animales y se vistieron de animalitos con disfraces. La idea era promocionar y publicitar el cuidado de los animales y el Día Internacional de la Pijama. Y anduvieron en todo el centro universitario así, y fui muy criticada porque me dijeron que era el Kinder Tonalá, que ya estábamos en esa parte, pero de alguna manera mis alumnos enfrentaron el reto. Si se hubieran vestido para promoción, si hubieran estado de una manera formal, no los hubieran volteado a ver porque iban a decirles, van a exponer, ¿verdad? Pero no, ellos, al andar conmigo en todo el centro universitario, nos voltearon a ver, y mi propósito era que se diera a conocer. La publicidad no necesariamente tienes que darle gustos a todos, tienes que llamar la atención para impactar.
Yeah.
Y yo los impacté, y el reto fue que los alumnos se vistieran y anduvieron así. Y pues a mí me gustó, yo logré mi objetivo, pero fui muy criticada.
So you guys have touched on all the points. We can just go have a tequila, right? We've got it covered. Now, let's try and put a little bit of framing on it and look at it in terms of some practices. And one thing I want to, so let's say you're a person who teaches math or chemistry, and you might say, we don't have any costumes. Okay. There's many, many ways to express identity, to cross boundaries. They don't all involve dressing up. But this idea that we can create a safe space to try, to put ourselves out there, which in the kind of formal lecture, test taker thing, there's not much negotiation in space for taking a risk of learning. And in social learning, there is a space for experimentation, for risk, that these small risks actually build the capacity of your students to be learners and to be actors in the world, to have that agency. So you really did cover some of the critical points. Okay, so we got past that already. So, yep, whoop, I make sounds. Yeah, you don't have to interpret that. Okay, so I have identity as a learner. And I don't come here as a university professional. I come here as a kind of a weird outsider. And that's the identity I can bring. But one of the things that I've had the privilege of doing is working with people like your students out in the world and working across boundaries. So it's interesting, over time, I'm 59 years old, my legitimacy has come from spanning boundaries, not from staying inside of boundaries. And there's some of us who are very good at staying inside boundaries, and there's some of us that are very bad at staying inside boundaries. And in an ecosystem of learning, you need the full range of people. So not everybody has to put themselves out there in a very public way, but your ecosystem has to have that kind of participation. I'm also a social learner. So I would not be up here if I hadn't met Etienne Wenger, who is one of the two people who developed the concept of community of practice. He did it with Jean Lave, and he studied midwives in the Yucatan, tailors in Egypt, and insurance adjusters in Canada. And he was inquiring as to how these people learn their practices, and they learn them with and from each other. And I rarely start with a book. I start with doing something with somebody, and then I go back to the book. And some of my friends start with a book and they come back into the practice. But there's this idea that we negotiate meaning and understanding by going out and living it and doing it. Also, this is a picture drawn by one of the Udehe Agora students last year. I don't know, if you were the artist, raise your hand. Was that you? Oh my God, so she's right there. So our identity is not just shaped by what's inside our heads, it's shaped by what other people perceive and experience about us. And that experience builds with social relationship. That's how, even conflict, trust, distrust, those are ways that our identities and our professions develop. So I'm just not doing a real good job here. Okay, come back. So, and I also want to confess another thing. I'm coming here totally biased. I will share my bias right now. I think learning is liberation. Okay? I have a very strong opinion, and I want you to know that. You can disagree with it, that's totally fine. But there's this lovely quote from Lilia Watson. She says, if you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you've come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. And this has been the powerful motivator through all my different careers. And I would suggest that that's one of the things at the core of social learning. So what are you talking about social learning? So we're going to go a little bit definition just so I don't get into trouble because I'm not a theoretician. And then you guys can tell me I'm wrong. That's, again, totally okay. But I'm really interested in this relational aspect of learning. I work a lot in international development. I work with distributed teams who are always interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, don't talk to each other, use the same words and don't mean the same thing, you know, messy, okay? And this idea that we have to be in relationship in order to solve those programs. So Albert Bandura said, it's learning by observing. That was his fundamental thesis. So it's social learning theory explains human behavior in terms of continuous, over time, reciprocal, between people, interaction between cognitive, behavioral, and environmental influences. In other words, it's this lovely, messy interaction. But I like Etienne Wenger Trainer's definition, which is learning is becoming. I'm becoming right now. Hopefully some of you are becoming right now too. Okay? So it's a very interesting way of thinking about our teaching. If learning is becoming, how does that change our behavior in our classrooms? How does it change our design for learning in the classrooms? Pierre Levy talked about reciprocal apprenticeship, which is not necessarily the master to the apprentice. It is more on an even level. So again, going to some of the things that Mary talked about this morning about power and how our roots can become intertwined with each other and change based on intertwining with those roots. So it's not just about expertise. There's an interesting thing that's emerging with the neurobiology. So that, what's his name? Dan Siegel, he's a neurobiologist working with mirror neurons. So mirror neurons are these things as we see something happening outside of us, but we perceive it as real for ourselves. So if you're eating that deep, dark chocolate, and I see your face is happy, and I see you kind of making that happy sort of sound, I am having, in a little bit, that experience. So one of the students up here this morning talked about, I don't have a lot to say, but my ability to watch and participate as an observer or on the periphery is still an important part of my learning. I'm an extrovert when it comes to learning, but not everybody is. And that's important. And when we think about social learning, it's not about being all the time, okay? So I also have another interesting fact to share from you. There was an article in The Atlantic that a friend of mine who's a brain researcher referred me to. He said, if you show a picture of a brain in a presentation, the audience thinks you're 30% smarter than before you showed the picture of the brain. So we're going to test this hypothesis, okay? So at some point, you're going to have to give me feedback if you think I'm 30% smarter than I was before the next slide. Okay. So, Dan, there's my brain, my messy brain. So, Mike, okay, I just went blank on his last name. My friend Mike, I'll get back to you, it'll come to me, who's doing a lot of work on the use of hypnotherapy for entrepreneurship and strategic business practices, is talking about the work about how the three parts of the brain, or the triune brain, work together. The cerebral cortex, which is our rational mind, the limbic, which is the emotional, and the stem, which is the reptilian, okay? When we're hijacked by fear or uncertainty, we can be stuck in that reptilian brain. If we are stuck in non-productive emotion, we can be stuck in the limbic. But when we get everything firing together, we can begin to fully utilize our brain. And again, Dan Siegel said, the emotional system develops in relationship. So we can't get that holistic thing very often by ourselves. So again, this idea of social learning is also about using our brains more effectively. Isn't that freaking amazing? Yes? See, okay, you still awake? Okay, okay. So am I 30% smarter? Yeah, no, okay. So why then do we have this mandate for social learning? We live in a complex, messy world where the next click, in lots of uncertainties. I never do builds because I never quite work them right, but for some reason today I decided to. So there are things happening around us that demand change. If you can still stand in the front of the room, lecture for an hour, and give a test and be successful, and that success is measured by the success of your student in practice in the field, you are a fabulous lecturer, and some of you are. But in a complex environment, we can't have learners just be recipients. They have to be able to act on it. So yesterday, we heard a lot of things about the role of the university in sustainability. And did you notice many times in that panel, there were these moments of, we looked at sustainability as, oh, we must have electric cars. But what if you don't have any copper? Okay? So if I'm a policy person promoting electric cars, but I don't understand the material science of the copper in the electric car, it's over. Okay? So this idea that we're in an environment where we can't know it all, but we have to work with other people who know the key things, or at least to be aware of those things so that we can critically question them. Okay, it's fallen off. Go back. Okay. Do you talk to your technology? I talk to my laptop. It makes it work better every time. Yeah. Okay. If you think I'm 30% smarter after that, you've got a problem. Okay. Okay. Just want to stop here. Questions, challenges. Okay. Remember, you can stop me. You have the power. Okay? Okay. Oh, but okay, I will. Oh, no, I just wrote the wrong. I need to point. So these are sketch notes, and it's a memory practice and a reification and sharing practice that I have learned. And this is not a totally objective capture of what happened, because I'm working both across languages and my own biases, which I own. I'm beginning to think in these sort of processes, we can never be fully objective, so I own my lack of objectivity. But I can also share this for someone who wasn't around. So when Mary came today, because her flight was delayed, in the bus, I said, well, here's what happened yesterday. Now, granted, she can't, not going to get the whole picture, but you picked up immediately on some of the things that happened. And when we do it with a picture, one of the wonderful things about a picture is if you can't see the detail here, but if I were to point to one of the drawings, you might go, what is that? But if I said, oh, here's what happened, blah, 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 I'm going to assume you understood everything I said. Drawings create negotiability and allow us to enter into a dialogue and a sense-making practice. I better look at the clock because I'm going to really mess up if I talk too much. Was that enough information about sketch notes? Okay. And if you want, we can practice together tomorrow. Okay. Okay, so into the practical stuff. Theory's done. You see, I'm really very poor at theory. This is why I have smart friends. Okay? In my work with people over time, there are many different forms that help us get things done. And sometimes our repertoire is a little narrow. And I'd like to suggest that we have a wider repertoire about how we create space for social learning, particularly in our classrooms. But these can apply at home with your family. They can apply with your soccer team, your church, whatever. And I used to call them forms, but Bev and Etienne Wenger Trainer. So Etienne is now Wenger Trainer because he married Bev Trainer, both of whom are friends. So it's really a beautiful thing. He calls these structuring processes, and I've been kind of chewing on that idea, structuring process, because I'm sort of a process person. So I'm still chewing on this. But the first thing is the solo practitioner going it alone, where it's about what I want, my identity, my goals, my trajectory, my friends, my style. I don't believe in learning styles, so I shouldn't have said that. My preferences, okay? And this is a really important part of design in a classroom experience. How do you design so you support the individual learner? And again, this goes to the people who watch versus sit in the center, they sit in the periphery. Again, from community of practice theory, this is called legitimate peripheral participation. Another $10 fancy pants phrase. But it's really important because it is legitimate. And we shouldn't marginalize people who are participating peripherally. But sometimes we need to bring them into the center too. So the solo stuff can also be augmented through mentoring, through personal reflection, through reflecting with a peer. The next form is one of my favorite, which is the pairs and triads. This is the most significant group size to get real work done because you don't have to do too much negotiation, okay? It's not necessarily the greatest place for diversity of perspectives. It's not going to get you those outlying things. But if we have to get this dinner cooked by 8 o'clock and you go to the store, I'll start chopping the onions and we'll get dinner done by 8 o'clock, okay? This is a place where teamwork is essential. Now, again this morning, Tanis and Brian talked about the triadas. And so when you're working with groups of people who don't know each other, a pair is a risky form because if one person drops out, the other person is, uh-oh. So in reality, in a realistic practice, triads are exceedingly powerful. Now, what was wonderful about these triads is they weren't all homogeneous. Sometimes they were of the same group. There's a triad over there. Were you waving about your triada? They're triadas way. They came to Conectáctica together, okay? See, so different disciplines, different campuses, different geography, and the diversity even can happen there. Or some of them were very homogeneous, and they supported each other in ways that, as they mentioned, we simply cannot. So it was, I think, an important part of the project. Yeah? Oh, micro. What? Oh, you have to say it into the microphone. Micro.
Bendito entre las mujeres.
Yeah. There's one of our powerful Udehe Agora people. He encouraged us strongly. I was going to say an improper phrase, but I stopped myself in time. I meant it very positively, but I have to watch my language. So moving along from these dyads and triads are bounded groups, like, fly with the flock. And this is where community of practice theory really happened. It looked at both tightly bounded groups and slightly less bounded groups, but the fact of these bounded groups is everybody knew why they were in it. So we had a shared purpose. And that's what sets it apart. So if we're going to talk about our communities of practice, well, we have to talk about what communities of practice are. So they're a group of people who care about something similar. They have the common domain. This is probably a pointer here, right? Ooh, I made it work. And so what we care about, a group of people who care about it, so we know who's in and who's out. And we have practices that over time we do. So this is not just theory. It is about doing stuff. So in UDG Agora, we were, as a whole, for a short period of time, a community of practice about increasing engagement in the classroom using technology and other resources. I always say that the technology sometimes was a Trojan horse to really explore our own teaching and learning. And I don't mind Trojan horses. Today, a lot of this talk is also talked about communities of practice as being online phenomena. I'm not going to dive into that. It's a really important side piece, but we'd get lost. We use each other to advance our practice. So there's something that happened around communities of practice as people started thinking of them as formulas. Well, you have the community, the domain, and the practice. You have a meeting on every Thursday. You bring cookies. You get things done. And there was a lot of pushback against Etienne, and so he wrote this fabulous paper, which I cannot recommend enough, which is called Communities of Practice and Social Learning Systems, the Career of a Practice. And the URL, and we'll share the slides so you can get the URL, but he talked about the concept of a community of practice does not exist by itself. It's a part of a broader conceptual framework for thinking about learning in its social dimensions. It's a perspective. And the most useful thing that I've learned about communities of practice is it's a perspective. It's not a formula. So when we think about our communities useful in our classrooms, I think the question is, are different types of social forms useful for learning? And communities of practice are one of them. And then we kind of start getting into these more open things. And it's the boundary becomes less clear. So it's less about the relationship and the identity of the participants, and it's more about the connection between the ideas and the content that float between those people. And that's the network. And the internet has opened up completely different possibilities around network work. So there is something, well, a community is a network, yes, because a network is always about relationship between the individual nodes. But a network isn't always a community because there isn't that shared purpose and that trajectory over time. And to me, the line is blurry, but they are different. So how are we going to use these to help us? And I'd like to suggest that there's at least 3 areas that these social constructs are useful. And then I really need to stop talking and make you guys do work. So one is for scaffolding social learning, to give us a way to construct a plan in our classrooms to help people learn with and from each other in the classroom and outside of the classroom. They're being used a lot for professional development, and sometimes they're a reaction to over-formalization. So do I have to go to another lecture where this person from the United States stands in front of the room and bores me to death at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I'm just going to go talk to my colleagues. And I'm going to discover their stories. And we're going to crack this egg open and get something done. So sometimes it is like a skunk. Do you have the expression skunk works? It's work that's happening, but kind of hidden. Okay. And then finally, as a system architecture, a way to work in a complex environment. So Harold Jarkey did this wonderful Venn diagram of showing work teams, which I would kind of call the dyad triads, but they certainly can be larger, that have a work output into the communities of practice, which have a problem-solving and learning output into social networks, which are about finding the diverse ideas, increasing innovation and diversity, and cross-pollinating ideas into the adjacent. So that's where the transversal stuff really gets interesting. Because you don't all have to agree. In fact, you shouldn't all agree. You want that diversity. It's hard to get work done when your team is too diverse. You can also think about it as like, what size group would work best in my classroom? A very small group for focus stuff, or do we want the networks where they're pollinating right out into their communities? One of the UDG projects was an architecture project that went out and interviewed people in communities. And boy, talk about interdisciplinary, because they went out and all of a sudden started realizing all the social dynamics of interacting in neighborhoods where they were not local, where they were coming in and they were the outsiders. So it was an amazing, amazing point of learning. the Agora was working a lot of those different intersections from the individual out to the network. And we did some social network mapping. Well, I didn't do it. Mark Smith did it for us using Node XL. I'm talking fast again, aren't I? The interpreter said, yes. I will slow down. Okay, and within our cohort, we had lots of nodes and intersections of different interests, and some of this was discovered by what people tweeted. And finally, the thing that's really interesting me these days is how do you use networks to deal with complex questions? Because teams have that's the business as usual, that's the work of tomorrow, okay? And networks are about the third horizon where we have a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty. We've got to do a lot of what Dave Snowden calls safe-fail experimentation. And interestingly, communities of practice can provide a bridge between those kind of closed, focused, I'm going to do this no matter what, teams, and this kind of vague and still uncertain network. So communities of practice themselves can be a bridge to help us work in complex environments. So the question is, I'm going to skip this one because I think the next one's more interesting, because I talk too much, I always talk too much. So how do we do this? We have conversations with each other. Okay, that's it. That's all you need to know. Conversation is a critical factor in social learning. And Glenda Oying had this wonderful thing. She thought there's 4 main things you should do is observe. Don't waste a good surprise. Pause and wonder when something unexpected arises. And I can't help but think of your story. He had the headache. You know, there's something there. And then connect. Okay, so I connected it to my experience of when I'm very tired, sometimes I can do things that I didn't know I could do. Because I let go of my should and could and would and must and mustn't, which sometimes is an incredible straitjacket. Question, and we saw question was a theme through all the presentations so far. And then finally try it out. Don't just sit there and theorize and go out and try it. And these all have benefits in a transversal learning. So there's some work going on with a community of practice that I'm very involved with, which is called Liberating Structures. And what we're discovering is the practices in Liberating Structures, and yes, there's a workshop tomorrow. There's my obligatory plug for my workshop. It's in this space between over-control processes and under-control processes. So over-control processes is when I stand up here and you just have to sit there and suffer through my talking. And under control process, I'd say just talk amongst yourself and we'll get back to each other at the end of the time, okay? It's this space where there's just enough structure for people to feel agency and some sense of control and power, and enough openness that they can truly explore and create and bring their best selves to the solutions. So it's been very, very interesting. And one of the things that us old school people are, we like to talk. And here I am. So last piece, and you're going to work on this piece. So there has to be a value proposition for this, but it can't be just for you, the professor, or your university. And so what we've understood when we've done analysis of communities of practice that have been very successful, they find some sort of intersection between the needs of the students, the professors, and the institution. They're not all the same, and they're never all the same. Well, they're rarely all the same. In emergencies, by the way, they're often the same. Crisis causes us to cohere. So we're going to do a little bit of work to think about what it is, but I want to share a slide about what I mean by value. And again, this is a Wenger trainer, Martin Delotte framework, which I'd highly recommend reading the paper on the wenger-trainer.com website. And they talk about 5 kinds of value, immediate value. So I just got something out of this and I'm excited, okay? The second is a potential value. Well, I have a new tool I can go try out in my classroom tomorrow. Applied value is I go out, I take that tool, I try it, I see what happens, I adjust it, okay? 4 is the realized value. So over the time, I'm using those practices and I begin to change my own teaching and learning practice. And it's making a difference. It may be efficiency, it may be, if it's in a game, you unlock level 32. There's lots of different things, but something actually changes. And then the reframing value is when the system transforms. What part of your university systems need transforming? What part of your personal practice needs transforming? What part of your students' practice needs transforming? And these questions can be really useful. So I'm going to have us break into 3 quick groups. I'm going to have you, I'm looking to see where people are sitting. Yeah. Micro.
¿Pueden ser 4 equipos?
Well, you're already ahead of me, so yes. What do you think the 4th team's supposed to be?
In the roof, we have lines. Maybe it could be 4 teams and 1 team could be...
Oh, you're just practical.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, there's actually a 4th category, and I'll probably throw it in here. Okay, so the first group is going to be this front group, and you're going to start in triadas, and you're going to brainstorm muy rápido. What do you think the most important value propositions are for students? And then when I give you a clue, you're going to come together and come up with 3. And I'm going to bring you 3 pieces of paper, and you're going to write down 1 per piece of paper. The three that you can all agree on. And there's going to be some that you don't agree on. In a perfect world, we'd capture those all, but we're going to focus on where there's some coherence. So you guys, students, right? Go students. Okay. In back, you're going to be the profesores. Okay? You're going to look for the 3 that you can agree on. And again, you're going to start in triads. We're going to go rápido, rápido, rápido. And then you're going to try and come up with 3 to share. And you're going to write them down. This is a big challenge to do fast. Back here, you guys are going to do the institution, in this case, the university. Okay? And you guys are going to get to do what's on the future slides, which is society. What value proposition is this for society? Okay. So you're going to work in triadas. When I get a signal, you're going to come as a group. And when I get a signal, you're going to share your top 3. Pronto? Listos? Go. Okay. Yeah. Ooh. Come on. Okay. Here's for one group. Here's for one group. Okay. Okay. I'm going to look at my watch. See. The 3 most valuable things about social learning for that group. Social learning. The social learning, which is learning with and from each other. So it can be any form, but, you know, so which group are you in? Society. So what is the 3 most valuable things social learning brings to society? Okay? Okay. Okay. See. 1 idea per sheet, so you need at least 3 pieces of paper. 1 idea per sheet. No, a whole group. So you just keep the first ones in your head. Okay. Un cada ideia, mais 3 para o grupo grande. Totalmente 3, no fim. Sí. Yeah. 2 minutes in sua triada.
If you need help to give paper and pens to everybody, you can ask them.
That's good. We're good, but thank you. We're good.
to write the result?
No, when you get in the big group, you write. You just talk in the small group. In the big group, you write. So they just need the paper in the big groups. Solamente en los grupos grandes. Las pequeñas no precisa usar as papeles. Comienzan en triadas y después en el grupo entero y cada papel, una idea, un papel, una idea, un papel. ¿Ok? ¿Listos? Ok. Sí. Did you start in triadas? Did you start in triadas? Sí, ok. Primero en triadas. Bueno, muy bueno. Ok. Ok. You should go to your whole group now. Vaya a su grupo grande. Una idea para cada papel grande.
Una idea.
Gracias. Yeah, grupo grande agora. Conjuntos. En grupo grande agora. Okay, grupo grande now.
Get quite well the instructions. Are we going to work in triadas?
First, you work in triads to think about ideas, and then you take them to the big group and come up with 3 for the whole group.
For the general group?
Yeah, which is hard, only 3.
Okay.
Thank you. They took the pens. This is too light, they won't show up. So you have to, maybe. Cool.
Gracias.
De nada. Okay, a música. When I say music, you can turn it on. Not yet, but cuando. Test, okay. 2 minutos. É um reto difícil. Quince minutos. Gracias. Un minuto. ¿Listos? Listos. Do 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 do. Okay. Okay, stay where you are. Stay where you are. Un minuto. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. They're still negotiating. I'm going to give them just a second. Okay. What we're going to do, you have your ears back on? What we're going to do is we're going to go through each one, okay? Society, don't feel bad. There's not a slide for you because I switched the order. Okay? Ready? Estudiantes, ¿están listos? Okay. Maybe we should do students last. No, we don't want to do students last. Okay, almost. So while they are finishing, think about group size and group form in that exercise. What can we reflect upon group size and form from that exercise? It's pretty easy to think about it by yourself. Stay there. Don't sit down. Stay there. Okay. Attenzione per favore. Por favor. Why does the Italian come out in the afternoon? Okay. So just I'll finish that thought. What was your experience of group form and group size in that exercise? Holler out and then I'll I don't know where the microphone is. The bigger it is, the harder it is.
El equipo que nos tocó trabajar con sociedad, fuimos poquitos, pero sustanciosos, porque nos pudimos poner de acuerdo más rápido.
Ah, okay. Anything else you noticed about group size? Easy by yourself, a little bit harder in triads. Fast in a large group is difficult. So this is one of those practices where if you aggregate from small to large, you have to give it sufficient time and structure. Go ahead.
Nosotros vimos distintos enfoques. Nos separamos en 3 grupos y después tuvimos que hacer la selección de los temas que cada uno de los grupos tomó, por lo cual termina un tercio que realmente no todos decidimos.
Ah, okay. So we'll see what you say. So what 3 things? ¿Cuáles 3 cosas que ustedes you came up with? Here. Okay. And I think I might have turned my translation off, so excuse me for just 1 second, because I'm not hearing you. Oh, because the volume got turned down. Okay, you ready?
Innovador, responsabilidad y respeto.
Okay, so the value proposition of social learning for students is innovation, responsibility, and respect. Which is the one that came up third? In the last second.
No. Innovador.
Innovación. Okay. That'll be interesting to see if there's a pattern. Okay. How about for, where's the professor? Did I go past the professor? Oh, there's, okay, professors, what's your value proposition? They have a cheerleading team.
Okay.
Okay.
Bueno, primero también estuvimos en grupos separados y después fue como, allá hay una bolita, mejor hay que decirles que se reúnan todos. Y ya estando reunidos empezamos a ver cuáles eran nuestras opciones y a descartar cuáles estaban contenidas dentro de los otros. Entonces nuestras conclusiones fueron primero motivación,
Motivation.
responsabilidad
An echo.
y congruencia. Congruencia.
Congruence.
Precisamente por la labor que tenemos como profesionistas y la labor también hacia los estudiantes.
Yeah.
Además, pues realmente de proporcionar los conocimientos que son adecuados para ellos, para su formación.
And for your own upbringing as a professor. Yeah, okay. So let's now go back to university. What's the value proposition university team?
Bueno, primero nosotros seguimos el mismo proceso en pequeños grupos y después ya aquí había un grupo mayor. Descartamos también las que considerábamos que estaban incluidas en algunas más amplias. Primero, acceso universal y garantizar que existe ese acceso para todos, ¿no? Consideramos desde alguna discapacidad física, pero no solo eso, sino también el acceso a la educación o garantizar el acceso de cualquiera que le interese aprender algo o formar parte de una institución educativa. El segundo sería el pensamiento crítico, que consideramos que tendría que nacer o que tendría que ser propuesto o generado en las universidades. De hecho, consideramos que, el orden va en el sentido de que primero necesitamos el acceso universal, después el pensamiento crítico, para después el tercer eco, la responsabilidad social.
So these are, it's interesting if we go back to Carlos's presentation, yours seemed very much in the service of society. But what if you had looked at it in the service of business? If that was the position of your university, they could be very different value propositions. So again, the perspective matters here. Now, the students, the professors, and the university do not exist in a vacuum. They exist in society. So the other value proposition is beyond us. And a university may or may not accept that value proposition. So what did you guys come up with? Os tres. Oh, here he comes. Thank you for noticing the microphone. Gracias.
Bueno, trabajamos sobre 3 valores y uno es que la sociedad tiene que recibir de la universidad, de los estudiantes y de los profesores conocimientos útiles y prácticos para el bien común.
Yeah.
También, como compromiso, como sociedad, es formar ciudadanos íntegros y felices. Y el tercero, generar, o la sociedad tiene que ser depositaria de pensamiento crítico y propositivo, pero en bien de la comunidad, de una región, de un país o a nivel global.
So it's very interesting to see the connections. And if we had more time, we could map these out and begin to understand where there's tension between them and where there's complementarity. But remember what the wicked question I asked you at the very beginning? How can we both pay attention to our discipline and at the same time create innovation, or you could say access and inclusiveness across our disciplines?